The colony night was cold and silent, wind blowing dust through the narrow streets of Velisnine. Dr. Marcus Hall rubbed his tired eyes as he cleaned the last surgical tray in his small clinic. It had been another long day. More injuries, more infections, more faces that carried fear instead of hope. He was ready to lock up when he heard a soft knock at the door. Not the loud kind of knock from soldiers or miners, but a timid one, almost like someone was scared to exist. He walked to the door and opened it halfway. Outside stood a little alien girl, maybe 8 years old, thin, trembling, her gray-blue skin shivering under a torn blanket. In her small hands she held something strange, a cracked wooden toy carved in the shape of a bird. Her voice shook as she spoke. "Please. Medicine for my mother." Marcus froze. He had seen poverty before, but not like this. Aliens were not allowed in human clinics. The law was clear. Anyone helping them could lose their license, maybe even be arrested. Still, when he looked into her eyes, he saw pain that no child should carry. She held the toy out toward him. "Trade," she whispered. "For pain medicine." Marcus knelt down so their eyes met. The toy looked worthless, old, broken, maybe her only treasure. He said gently, "Where is your mother?" "She's in the mines," the girl said. "She can't move. She cries when she breathes." Marcus felt his chest tighten. He knew what that meant: lung collapse from toxic dust exposure. Without treatment, she would die within days. He glanced down the dark street. No guards, no witnesses, at least not yet. He sighed and motioned her inside. "Come in quickly." The girl hesitated, then stepped in, her bare feet leaving faint marks of red dust on the metal floor. Marcus locked the door and turned the light low. Inside, the clinic smelled of antiseptic and old metal. Marcus took a breath and spoke softly. "What's your name?" "Leary," she said, gripping the toy tightly. He smiled faintly. "Leary. That's a nice name." She said nothing, just looked around with wide eyes, curious and afraid. Marcus went to the supply cabinet. Every label on every bottle reminded him of the laws printed on his license. He could lose everything for this, but how could he not help? He filled a small vial with painkillers and wrapped it in cloth. When he turned around, Leary was staring at a jar of candy on the counter. He handed her the medicine and said, "Give this to your mother. 1 drop every hour." Leary's eyes glistened as she placed the toy on his desk. "It's for you," she said quietly. "Trade." Marcus shook his head. "Keep it. It's yours." But she pushed it closer. "Trade means fair." He smiled sadly and nodded. Taking the toy, her lips trembled. "Thank you." Human doctor. Then a sound cut through the moment. A harsh metallic buzz. The security scanner outside the clinic had activated. Marcus's heart jumped. Someone had reported movement. He moved to the window and saw a drone hovering outside. Its red lens flashing. "Stay quiet," he whispered. Switching off the lights, the drone emitted a bright beam. Scanning the door for heat signatures, Marcus quickly opened a hidden panel behind the cabinet. A narrow maintenance shaft used for oxygen filters. "Go inside, Leary," he said. Her eyes widened. "Are they bad men?" He nodded. "Yes, and they will hurt you if they find you." She crawled into the shaft, clutching her blanket. He closed it gently and sat back at the desk, trying to look calm. A loud knock shook the door. "Medical inspection. Open up," a voice ordered. Marcus opened it halfway, pretending to yawn. "Evening, officers," he said. "Clinic's closed. What's the problem?" The soldier scanned the room with his visor. "We detected unauthorized movement. Any aliens enter this area?" Marcus shrugged. "Only rats and ghosts," the soldier frowned. "You're alone?" "Yes," Marcus said, keeping his tone steady. The second soldier walked around, scanning with his light. The beam stopped near the cabinet. Marcus's breath caught. The soldier stared for a moment, then turned away. All clear. They stepped outside, but one of them paused at the door. "Be careful, Doctor," he said. "Traitors hide aliens these days." "The punishment is death." Marcus nodded politely until the door shut. He exhaled slowly, sweat dripping from his temple. He waited a full minute before opening the cabinet again. Leary crawled out, eyes wide. "They gone?" "Yes," he said. "For now." She hugged her blanket, shaking. Marcus knelt again and whispered, "Listen to me. You can't come here again. It's too dangerous." She nodded sadly. "But my mama." "She's still sick." Marcus looked at the medicine box. Then at the door. His conscience screamed louder than fear. He took another bottle stronger medicine this time, and packed it into a small pouch. "Here," he said, handing it to her. "Take this too. It will help her breathe." Leary looked at him, uncertain. "You break rule for me?" He smiled softly. "Maybe the rule was wrong." She gave a tiny nod, then ran into the darkness outside, her little figure swallowed by the storm of red dust. Marcus stood at the doorway, holding the wooden toy in his hand. It felt warm, as if it carried her hope inside. He looked up at the night sky filled with broken stars and whispered, "What have I just done?" In that moment, he didn't know that his small act of kindness had already started something much larger. Something that would shake the entire colony, and turn a quiet human doctor into the most hunted man on Velis 9. Morning came slowly on Velis 9, the sky thick with red clouds and mining dust. Dr. Marcus Hawley sat at his clinic table, staring at the small wooden toy lying beside a half-finished cup of coffee. He hadn't slept. Every sound outside felt like footsteps coming for him. Every flicker of light looked like a drone's red eye. He knew what he did last night was illegal. But he couldn't stop thinking about the little alien girl's face. Her name still echoed in his head, Leary. He turned the toy over and noticed something strange. A small metal seam ran across its base. Almost invisible, he pressed it lightly, but it didn't open. "Probably just cracked wood," he muttered, trying to ignore the curiosity. The sound of the colony alarm broke his thoughts. He looked outside. The soldiers were sweeping the streets. Scanners in hand, Marcus shut the blinds quickly. Then he heard another sound, a faint knock again. Just like last night, he opened the door and froze. Leary was back, her eyes wide and scared, her hands covered in gray dust. "Doctor," she whispered. "They took Mama." Marcus knelt down. "Who took her?" "The guards," she said, breathing fast. "They said she can't work, so they take her away." Marcus felt anger twist in his chest. He had treated soldiers, miners, even smugglers. But this was cruelty. He pulled her inside. "Did anyone follow you?" She shook her head, tears forming. "No. I hide in the pipes." He gave her a small blanket and a cup of warm water. "Drink slowly," he said. Then he looked outside again. 2 patrols were searching nearby. He turned off the lights and crouched beside her. "Leary, you must not leave again," he said softly. She looked up at him, her voice shaking. "Where will Mama go?" Marcus sighed. "I don't know. Maybe to the upper camps." "The bad place?" she asked. He nodded slowly. "Yes." Leary's tiny hands gripped his coat. "You can help her." "Your doctor." Her words hit him like a stone. He wanted to help. But how could one man fight a system built on fear? Yet, looking at her, he realized he had already chosen his side the moment he gave her those medicines. He went to the console and opened his restricted channel. Maybe he could check prisoner records. Maybe her mother's name was listed somewhere. As he typed, the clinic lights suddenly blinked red. A loud beeping filled the room. "Unauthorized access detected," the console said in a metallic voice. Marcus cursed under his breath. He had triggered a network alert. The girl jumped, scared. "What is it?" "Trouble," Marcus whispered. "Hide again. Quick." He pushed open the wall panel where she had hidden before. "Stay quiet no matter what happens," he said. Leary nodded and crawled inside, clutching her toy. Marcus closed the panel and turned to face the door. Outside, heavy boots approached, echoing through the narrow alley. Voices followed human soldiers, the same ones from last night. The door burst open. Captain Rowe, tall and cold-eyed, stepped inside with 2 guards. "Dr. Hale," he said with a calm but sharp tone. "Your clinic's network just accessed a restricted database." Marcus tried to act confused. "Must be a system error." "I was checking medical records," Rowe smirked. "For aliens?" Marcus froze, saying nothing. Rowe's scanner beeped once. Detecting heat traces from the wall, the captain's gaze shifted to the cabinet. He walked closer, tapping the metal with his hand. Marcus's heartbeat raced. Rowe stopped and turned. "You've been here long enough to know the laws, Doctor," he said. "Harboring alien species is treason." Marcus forced a calm tone. "And accusing innocent doctors without proof, is that justice?" The captain narrowed his eyes but didn't respond. He signaled the guards. "Search everything." Marcus stepped between them. "This is a sterile area." One of the soldiers pushed him aside. Metal boots clanging on the floor, they opened drawers, kicked open crates. Scattering medical supplies everywhere, Marcus clenched his fists but stayed silent. Then a sudden noise, a faint metallic clink from behind the wall. The captain's head turned sharply. "What was that?" Marcus coughed loudly to cover it. "Probably the ventilation fan." "It's been loose for weeks." Rowe stared at him for a long moment. Finally, he lowered his scanner. "We'll be watching you, Doctor." Then he leaned close and whispered, "If you're hiding something, pray the system finds it before I do." And with that, they left. Marcus waited until the sound of boots faded away. Then he ran to the wall panel and opened it. Leary crawled out, shaking and coughing softly. "I'm sorry," Marcus whispered. "They almost found you." She hugged the toy tight. "I was quiet, like you said." He smiled weakly. "You did good." He looked at the mess they had left the broken equipment. The spilled medicine. His hands trembled slightly as he began to clean. But deep down he knew things had changed. It was no longer about one sick alien woman. It was about an entire colony suffering under silence. He turned back to Leary and said, "We can't stay here anymore." She blinked. "Where we go?" Marcus opened a small drawer and pulled out an old access card. "Down below," he said, "there are tunnels. Old maintenance shafts. They lead outside the colony." Leary tilted her head. "Outside is bad." Marcus smiled faintly. "Not worse than here." He packed what little he could carry: first aid kits, a flashlight, a ration pack. And the small wooden toy. He gave it back to her. "Don't lose this, okay?" She nodded, holding it close to her chest. As they stepped into the service passage, the alarm started again in the distance. Marcus knew it wasn't just coincidence anymore. Someone had seen the security footage. Someone knew he had helped an alien child. He looked down at Leary, her small hand gripping his coat tightly. "We run," he said softly. "And we don't look back." The tunnels were dark and narrow, the sound of machinery echoing through them as they disappeared into the shadows. The clinic lights went out for the last time, and far above them, Captain Rowe watched the monitor feed with a cold smile. "Run all you want, Doctor," he said quietly. "We'll find you." The tunnels beneath Velis 9 were silent and cold. Rust dripped from the pipes, and the faint hum of power lines echoed like whispers in the dark. Dr. Marcus Hawley held a dim flashlight in one hand and guided Leary with the other. The little alien girl walked barefoot, clutching her wooden toy to her chest, Each step echoed softly, reminding Marcus how deep they had gone under the colony. He had worked in these tunnels years ago, back when they carried clean oxygen to the mining sectors. Now they were half collapsed and forgotten, but they were also invisible to the patrol drones above. Marcus stopped near an old junction box and listened. No sounds behind them, just the constant hum of airflow. He crouched and whispered, "We're safe for now," Leary nodded, though her small face looked pale in the flashlight's glow. "Doctor," she said softly, "why humans hate us?" Marcus took a slow breath, unsure how to answer. "Not all humans hate you," he said. "Some just forget what kindness means." She looked at him, confused. "Kindness?" He smiled faintly. "It means helping someone even when no one tells you to." They kept walking until they reached a sealed hatch. Marcus tapped the control pad. No power. He groaned and used a manual wrench to open it, the metal creaking loudly. Behind it was an old maintenance bay filled with dust. Broken tools lay scattered across the floor, and an ancient console blinked weakly in the corner. "This will do," Marcus said. Setting down his bag, he checked the console, trying to reconnect it to the outer communication grid. Maybe he could find out where they were searching for him. While he worked, Leary sat on a crate, humming quietly and rocking her toy. The sound was soft, almost like a lullaby. Marcus turned his head and smiled. "You're brave, you know that?" She shrugged. "Mama says brave means scared, but still walking." Marcus chuckled quietly. "She's right." Then a sudden beep echoed from the console. The monitor flickered to life, showing colony broadcast alerts. "Wanted, Dr. Marcus Hawley, charged with alien collaboration and theft of medical supplies." Marcus's stomach sank. His picture filled the screen. His name, his ID, his clinic address, everything. "Damn it," he whispered. Turning off the screen, Leary's eyes widened. "They're looking for you." He nodded slowly. For us, outside, the storm had started again. Red dust blew across the desert plains, covering tracks and buildings alike. It would help them hide for a while. But drones didn't need eyes. They used scanners. Marcus knew they had to move again before sunrise. He packed the supplies quickly. Then Leary pointed at something, an old exit ladder leading up to a steel hatch. "Maybe this go out," she said. He nodded. "Let's hope so." They climbed carefully. Marcus first, when he pushed the hatch open. Cold air hit his face. He looked around the wasteland stretched for miles under a blood-colored sky. Broken mining towers stood like skeletons, and far in the distance, lights glowed faintly from the colony wall. He helped Leary climb out and closed the hatch behind them. "Stay close to me," he said, wrapping his coat around her. They walked toward the canyon line, where scanners couldn't easily detect heat. The wind howled, carrying the sound of far-off engines. Marcus looked up. Tiny dots of light moved in the sky. "Search drones." He pulled Leary down behind a pile of rocks. "Don't move," he whispered. The drones swept past, red beams cutting through the dust storm. For a moment he thought they were safe. But then a sharp mechanical noise came from behind a patrol rover. Marcus's heart raced. The rover stopped near their rocks. Sensors scanning, a robotic voice called out, "Unregistered life signs detected. Identify yourselves." Marcus held his breath, covering Leary's mouth gently. The voice repeated louder, "Identify or be neutralized." He could hear the weapon motors charging. Leary's eyes filled with tears. But she didn't make a sound. Then thunder struck overhead. A lightning flash hit a nearby antenna tower, sending a wave of static interference through the area. The rover's sensors flickered and went offline for a few seconds. Marcus grabbed the chance, pulling Leary up. "Run!" They sprinted toward the canyon ridge, dust flying around them. The rover roared back to life, chasing them through the storm. Marcus's lungs burned. The ground beneath them was uneven and sharp, cutting through his boots. He looked back. The rover was gaining fast. "Keep running, Leary," he shouted. They reached a narrow cliff edge where an old mining cable hung loose. Without thinking, Marcus grabbed it and tied it around a pipe. "Hold on tight," he yelled and slid down the slope with her in his arms. The wind screamed past them, and the world turned into a blur of red and gray. They landed hard near an abandoned relay station. Marcus coughed, pain shooting up his leg. Leary stood, shaken but alive. The rover stopped at the top of the cliff, scanning below, unable to follow. Marcus leaned against a wall, catching his breath. They had escaped, but not for long. He looked around the relay station. Inside, rusted screens and empty fuel cells filled the room. Leary pointed to a faint blue light blinking in the dust. "What is that?" she asked. Marcus limped over. It was a functioning terminal. Old but still online, he brushed away the dirt and pressed the key. The screen flickered, showing a file directory. And there, among the broken data logs, was a single encrypted file marked Project Seraph. Marcus frowned. "What's this doing here?" He tried to open it, but it asked for an access key. Leary tilted her head and opened her wooden toy again. This time, a small silver shard fell out a data crystal. Marcus's eyes widened. "You've had this the whole time?" She nodded. "Mama said it keeps her safe." Marcus inserted the crystal into the terminal port. The screen flashed, and encrypted files began to load. Lines of data scrolled: fast chemical tests, alien DNA samples, medical reports, and signatures from the colony governor himself. It was proof of everything. Illegal experiments on alien workers, the drugs, the painkillers. They weren't medicine. They were control serums. Marcus stared in shock. He finally understood why Leary's mother had been taken. They didn't just want to silence her. They wanted to erase the evidence. He turned to Leary, his voice trembling. This could save everyone. But outside, the sound of engines grew louder again. Multiple rovers this time, and the sky filled with red search beams. Leary looked up, frightened. "They found us." Marcus clenched his jaw. "Then we run again." He grabbed the data crystal, tucked it safely in his coat, and lifted her into his arms. "Whatever happens, don't let go," he said. The ground shook as the first drone fired, and as they disappeared into the storm once more, the file named Project Seraph kept flashing on the terminal screen. The storm raged across the barren land of Velis 9, red lightning tearing the sky apart. Dr. Marcus Hawley carried Leary close to his chest as they ran through the canyon's shadows. Dust burned his lungs. Every breath felt like fire. But he didn't stop. Behind them, the colony patrol searched with drones and scanners, engines roaring through the storm. He knew they had little time before the soldiers found the relay station and the data he had uncovered. They found an old comms tower buried in the sand, its antenna half broken and leaning. Marcus pushed open the rusted door, the hinges screaming in protest inside. The room smelled of metal and smoke, but at least it was dry. He set Leary down and tried to catch his breath. The girl looked around, frightened but curious. "Are we safe here?" she asked. Marcus nodded weakly. "For now." "Yes." He connected his wristpad to the terminal's power line. The small screen blinked alive, showing the remaining data from the file he had downloaded, Project Seraph. He scrolled through page after page. The reports described something monstrous. Human scientists using alien laborers for drug testing. Painkillers mixed with neural suppressants. Chemicals that numbed emotion and obedience. Each test was signed by the colony's governor, Orlin Voss. And one report had a name he recognized: Patient 042, Leary's mother. Marcus clenched his fists. So this was the truth. The colony had been turning alien suffering into research. He turned to Leary and said quietly, "Your mother was brave." "She tried to stop them." The girl blinked, not understanding. "She said the medicine hurts people." Marcus nodded. "Because it wasn't medicine. It was poison." He knew he couldn't keep this secret anymore. He had to show the truth to the entire system, even if it meant death. He linked the data crystal to the tower's uplink. But the signal was weak, storm interference blocking transmission. He frowned and muttered, come on," pressing the controls. Leary stood beside him, watching the screen flicker. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Sending the truth," he said. "So everyone will know what they've done." Outside, thunder shook the ground. The radar monitor beeped motion detected nearby. Marcus's stomach turned cold. "They found us," he whispered. He looked at the upload bar 30%, still too slow. He opened his medpack and pulled out a small data drive. "If I don't make it, take this," he told Leary. "Find anyone wearing this mark." He drew a small symbol of the Terran humanitarian fleet. "They'll protect you." Leary shook her head, tears filling her eyes. "No." "You come too," Marcus smiled faintly. "I'll try, little one." "I promise." A loud explosion ripped through the side of the tower. Sand and debris flew through the room as drones swarmed in, red lights flashing. Marcus grabbed the pistol from his coat. It wasn't much, just a sidearm, but he fired anyway. The bullets sparked against the metal shells of the drones. "Run, Leary!" he shouted. The girl hesitated, then darted toward the back door, clutching the toy and the drive. Marcus shot down one drone, but two more flew in, their beams slicing across the console. The upload paused at 72%. Marcus threw a wrench at one of the drones, smashing its sensor. He dove to the ground as another beam scorched the wall beside him. Smoke filled the air, the uplink cable sparking. He reached for it and plugged it back in, shouting, "Hold together, damn it." The screen flickered back 83%. Outside, a voice boomed through the speakers. "Marcus Hawley, you are surrounded. Surrender now, and the child will be spared." It was Captain Rowe, his cold tone cutting through the storm. Marcus looked at the doorway-shadowed figures in armored suits closing in. He wiped blood from his cheek and yelled back, "You can't silence the truth, Rowe." "It's already out there," the captain laughed. "Nothing escapes the colony's firewall." But Marcus saw the upload bar tick to 95%. He grabbed a flare gun and fired it at the fuel drum beside the entrance. The explosion blasted the soldiers back, fire lighting up the storm. Leary screamed from behind the rocks, "Doctor!" Marcus turned, coughing through the smoke. "Run? Don't look back." She clutched her toy and ran into the storm, tears streaking down her dusty face. The tower shook, metal groaning, and the last image on the terminal blinked upload complete. Marcus smiled weakly, relief washing over him. Then something struck his shoulder, a plasma shot. He fell to his knees, vision blurring. Captain Rowe stepped through the fire, his armor gleaming red in the light. "You ruined everything," he said coldly. Aiming his weapon, Marcus whispered, "No." "I saved them," Rowe fired again. And Marcus fell against the console, sparks raining around him. The captain turned toward the screen and saw the flashing message. "Data broadcast, sent to Terran Core Network." His eyes widened. Impossible. The system had transmitted before the network cut, far away. Hundreds of human stations and colonies began receiving encrypted signals. The truth was spreading faster than any soldier could stop it. Outside, the storm started to calm. Leary hid among the rocks, watching the tower burn. She saw shapes moving inside, but one light stood out, the small console glow. Still active, she pressed her hands together, whispering softly, "Please be safe, Doctor." Then she turned and walked into the endless desert. Holding the toy tightly, in her pocket, the drive blinked softly. Carrying everything Marcus had risked his life for, back inside the collapsing tower, Marcus lay against the terminal, barely breathing. His last thought wasn't fear, it was peace. He had done what a doctor was meant to do, not obey orders, but save lives. He smiled weakly and whispered, "Be brave." Leery, the fire grew brighter, and the tower finally fell silent, and across the stars. As the signal reached the Terran core worlds, people began to ask one question: what happened on Velis 9? Dawn broke over Velis 9 with the sky painted in fire and ash. The storm had passed, but smoke still rose from the ruins of the Combs Tower. Somewhere deep beneath that wreckage lay the man who had changed everything, Dr. Marcus Hawley. And somewhere beyond the horizon, a small alien girl walked alone. Carrying his dream, Leary followed the wind, her small feet leaving faint tracks across the red dust. The toy bird clutched in her arms was all she had left. The data drive blinked softly in her pocket. Pulsing like a heartbeat, she didn't know how far she had gone, only that she had to keep moving. Marcus's voice echoed in her mind, "Be brave." Little one, far above the planet, the first signals of the village transmission reached the Terran network. It started as a small encrypted file labeled Project Seraph. Within hours, it spread to thousands of outposts and space stations. By morning, every screen on every colony was flashing the same message. Humanitarian violation detected. Evidence from Velis 9. The truth had escaped the darkness. People everywhere began to talk. Soldiers looked at their orders with doubt. Doctors questioned their silence. Even the Terran Senate was forced to pause their meeting when the files appeared on their main display. Pictures of alien laborers, test victims, and signatures of officials filled the chamber. And in the center of it all, a final recording from Marcus Hawley. His tired face appeared on the broadcast, his voice calm and steady. "If you see this message, then the truth has reached you. We are humans, the builders, the healers, the dreamers, not monsters. Kindness is not weakness, and mercy is not treason." The room fell silent. On hundreds of planets, people watched the same message. For the first time in years, humans and aliens shared the same emotion, sorrow, and something else, hope. Back on Velis 9, Captain Rowe stood before the burning tower. He received new orders through his headset. The command was clear: stand down. Terran investigation incoming. He cursed under his breath. Smashing his visor into the sand, the colony governor had fled, and the guards were abandoning their posts. The empire they built on silence was falling apart. Meanwhile, Leary reached the edge of the desert. Ahead stood a small shuttle, Port Old. Abandoned, but still functional, she hid behind a crate, watching humans load supplies onto a freighter with a blue emblem, the same one Marcus had drawn. Her heart raced. She ran toward them, waving her hands. "Wait, please." The humans turned, surprised to see a small alien child covered in dust. One woman knelt down, her uniform marked with the Terran Humanitarian Fleet logo. "What's your name, little one?" she asked. "Leary?" she whispered. "Dr. Marcus sent me." The crew exchanged glances. The woman smiled gently. "You're safe now." Leary opened her palm and showed the blinking drive. "I have this," she said. "He said it's important." The woman's eyes widened as she took the drive. "By the stars. This matches the broadcast file." She placed a hand on Leary's shoulder. "You did well. Brave one." They lifted her aboard the shuttle. Inside, Leary sat by the window as the engines roared to life. For the first time, she saw Velis 9 from above. The colony looked small, broken, and quiet. But somewhere inside those ruins, she imagined Marcus smiling, days later. A memorial message was sent through the Terran network. In honor of Dr. Marcus Hawley, who remembered what it means to be human, across countless worlds, humans and aliens stood together in silence. Candles, lights, and beacons glowed from orbit to surface. The toy bird, the one Leary had once tried to trade for medicine, was placed in a glass case on the fleet's flagship. Underneath it, a single line engraved: "Compassion is stronger than law." Years passed. Leary grew up under the care of the humanitarian fleet. She studied medicine, like Marcus once did. Her hands learned to heal. Her heart learned to forgive. And every night, before she slept, she whispered the same promise: to help others, no matter who they are. One day, as she looked out the window of her ship, she saw Velis 9 shining faintly in the distance. A voice echoed in her memory, soft, kind, and human. "Kindness means helping someone even when no one tells you to," she smiled, touching the toy bird that now hung from her necklace. And with that small piece of her past, she carried forward the greatest truth Dr. Marcus Hawley had ever taught: that even in a galaxy of war and cruelty, one act of compassion could start a revolution.